Hi, thank you for joining us for this live session of our Sparking Curiosity course. Now, you've gone through at least 2 modules of our Sparking Curiosity online course in Canvas. And so you've explored a little bit about curiosity, you've built your background, you've been exposed to John Spencer's awesome presentation from Keep Indiana Learning. And then you had a chance to explore those really engaging entry events and thinking about how setting up a unit where you don't just launch right into telling the students this is what you need to know, but you really present it in a way that makes them curious and ask questions, and they explore before you explain, and you get to those need to knows. So in this live session, we're going to do a quick mini lesson at the beginning where we dig a little deeper because I allowed you to explore that content before I'm going to explain it. Now I'm going to explain it a little bit, and we are going to continue to engage with that. Let me go ahead and share my screen and we will get started. All right. So in the explore before explain portion, you were able to really dig in to some of those fundamental concepts of keeping students engaged through sparking that curiosity. In this little mini lesson, we're going to talk about how we can engage ourselves in a discussion really around those entry events and how they increase engagement, maybe some ideas for them, because that's often the hardest part is when you're thinking about flipping your unit and adding this curiosity builder in, sometimes you need to be curious about the content too. And then we'll talk about a few of those strategies and those entry events and the types so that you've got something to get started with. So we'll know that you're successful today if you can have one idea of an entry event that you're going to take with you and try out in your classroom. So those learning intentions and success criteria are part of John Hattie's Visible Learning. And those are those indicators that really make a difference so that students, learners like you are in this course, know exactly what I'm asking you to learn and engage with, and then how you can judge your own success in this. That's why we always put those in. Let's talk a little bit about the science behind this. So really, this is research-based. So I love Visible Learning with John Hattie. Of course, I think that his strategies, those high impact strategies, are key. I know you probably explored those too, but this piece comes from the 5E model of inquiry-based learning. Now, my background is as a school librarian. I spent 14 years as a school librarian. I did elementary. I did a 9th grade center for about 8 years. And then I finished out at the 10 through 12 and spent a handful of years up there with the oldest of our K-12 learners. Then I switched and I became a digital technology specialist for the district that I was a school librarian in. And I ran that school librarian program and really guided the work that we were doing as a complete K-12 integrated system. What I found is that these high levels of inquiry-based, project-based, problem-based learning classrooms really got the best bang for our collective buck as teachers, right? So we developed a language of speaking in the inquiry model. And we put that in our classroom agreements in the Canvas class as well. So we talk about noticing and wondering and being curious. So instead of saying like, I want you to learn this, I might say like, I wonder how you might dig in deeper to this part, or I noticed that you really felt like this piece was interesting. I wonder if you could dig in deeper there. So it's just that language shift that allows us to embrace the spirit of curiosity and inquiry-based learning. The 5E model is a great one to get started with, I think, because built right in here is this idea that you explore before you explain, and before that you engage them. So the entry events are that engaging piece where we hook them in, and then we explore the content in a way that feels very open to wondering and curiosity. Then as they're starting to hook in and want to learn more, we do those need to knows. Now you're starting to explain the content and bring them to the learning. So that process, those 5Es, that's just really where the sweet spot is for curiosity. Now, entry events. So this is that engagement piece. So we really got to get into it. More than just like, here's something interesting. It's a hype job. Like this is Method Man, of course, he's one of my faves, but there is nothing like someone who can hype you up for something new, right? Like this event is going to be awesome. So don't just drop a video and say like, watch this and be curious, right? That's never going to work. But it's like, oh my gosh, you guys, I was listening to this podcast and I heard this, or I was watching a video, or I was driving through the city and I saw this. Or like, you have to really get into it. You have to be a bit of a storyteller, because curiosity is all about that storytelling. And it's bringing that in. And there are times where I've had teachers ask me, like, how do I get them excited for, quadratic equations? Well, heck, math is everywhere. And what I would love to know is how the math that I'm learning is going to help me solve problems that aren't just on a piece of paper, that aren't listed in a workbook, right? Like, what would I be doing with that math that could really make a difference and be relevant to me? So it really sets the context for the learning. So let's think about the things that we probably normally do. Like, oh yeah, entry event. Okay, I play a video. It's cute, or it's funny, or it's poignant, or whatever. I just play a video and then we talk about it. Videos are excellent ways to engage as an entry event. Never feel like I'm trying to tell you a video won't work, especially now where we've got more video content coming in from true, authentic audiences around the globe. But just playing a video is a little different, right? Like, oh, it's kind of like the old film strips that we used to have back when I was in the elementary and middle school classroom. It was like, right? And I would be like, nap time, right? I'm ready to nap. That's not what we want to do. We want to hype it up. We want to build the anticipation. We want to get them excited. And what we want to do is kind of add a layer of that notice and wonder language to your videos. So some of the easy ways to do this is to have that back channel. So this year, especially, we've had a lot of virtual or hybrid learning. Hybrid learning where you've got kids in person and kids online on Zoom or Meet or Teams or WebEx or whatever platform you're using can be really hard because you don't often get times for them to talk. So by running a back channel means that while we're watching this video, your job is to chat about it. It could be as simple as a Google Doc. And Google Docs are awesome, especially if you make it where they have to be signed in. So they're not like the anonymous platypus up in the corner of the Google Doc, but it's more like this is Lena Darnay because she signed in with her school account to access this Google Doc. You could do it with a table so it feels more organized, or you could just have them, set a protocol, make sure they understand this before, try this out, make sure this isn't brand new when they're also trying to watch a video. And if it's a short video, during the first viewing, they just watch it and you just have them like on a piece of paper themselves, jot down a few things that they noticed or wondered, right? It's that language, the notice and wonder. They just write it down on a piece of paper. Then maybe you watch it again and you say, that is so big that I got to watch it again. And this time I want you to share on the class Google Doc a notice or a wonder. You could have columns, you could have a table. There's also some really cool back channels like the chats. So what if you had them doing some kind of a whiteboard chat where you've got the whiteboard.chat is another one where they're all logged in at the same time and they can chat with each other, and it's recorded. So you would have a copy of that. It's also documented. You would know who's saying what. So we're keeping it on the level there. But now as they're watching the video and they're participating in talking about it, it's not just flat take a nap while the film strip rolls. So that back channel idea could be something that would help engage them as they're doing that notice and wonder, watching with purpose, really thinking about what they're seeing. And again, it's up to you to hype it up to you to really give them that protocol. They don't know how to do this. You might also not know how to do this, but you have to act like you know how to do this. And then you tell them how to do that and you keep them going, right? The other thing here is YouTube is wonderful TikTok, wonderful. Like find the content. That's great. But if you can create your own video content, and it doesn't have to be you on stage, it could be you walking around the neighborhood and just like zooming in on all the trash you find. Or if you're thinking about math and architecture and design, and you're looking, like you go around and you take pictures of things that are crumbling in your city, or like bad intersection. Oh my gosh, intersections would be awesome if you could record how many times people run lights, or like you would have some, that's probably even available from some of your contacts at the city or the government center, right? So you could create content that's more local. YouTube's great, but often it's not in your hometown. You could have a person come in and create some content, and we'll get into this with like fake or real correspondence. But video content that feels real is great. It doesn't have to be overproduced. It does not have to just be you talking at the screen like I am right now, but it could be something more organic, right? And maybe you don't even really tell them what's going on. You just ask them to notice what's going on, and give them the chance to see what it is. And then the cliffhanger. Oh my gosh, you guys, I have to tell you, the cliffhanger is so much fun. This kind of goes into this. And I think this video might be one that I would use as an entry event to you. It's not really a student facing one that you would use with your students. It might be something you would do for your students, but the cliffhanger, the plot twist, the unexpected is great, especially in this one. So this goes into correspondence, fake or real. Let me just make sure that I've got my sound going with this share, because I do want you to see that. Okay, I think we're good. Correspondence. A lot of times when you're introducing new content, and especially if you're doing it in a project-based learning way, a letter or an email can be that springboard. So some of the projects I've done with classrooms, we had a retirement center that was within walking distance of our high school, like a block. It was behind a parking lot and then across a little pathway. And then there was the retirement center. It was very close, Robin Run. So Robin Run, we talked to them and said, we would like to have our kids have a cross-generational connection for their social impact project that's coming up. Would there be somebody that might want to write a letter to the kids saying how disconnected you guys are, like asking for connection? Like we left it pretty generic. We didn't really know exactly what we were doing because we'd never done it before, but we just went to them and say, is there somebody who might want to write a letter to these teenagers to engage them in a cross-generational conversation? Oh my gosh. The letters that came in from these amazing octogenarians. They were all 80, 90. We had one woman who was almost 100. She celebrated her 100th birthday during the project. It was so exciting. We threw her a party. They wrote letters that we read in class, and they just talked very genuinely about how they were lonely. They were feeling disconnected. They had a passion to know about what the teenagers were interested in, that they hear these things or they see things on TV, but they just want a guide to learn about them. And this was pre-COVID, but they were still feeling very isolated. A lot of them didn't have family close, so they didn't come to visit often. And they just wrote these heartfelt letters. And when we read them out loud, I mean, I thought we were going to all start crying, but the teenagers were like, we would like to meet these people. They live with, less than 5-minute walk from this classroom. We would like to be those people for them. And it was this great time of like, well, how do you bring that together? And we started, it was like narrative writing standards, right? Like you back into all these standards, right? Like you just start the thing. We can make standards fit. So we did some narrative writing. They wrote letters back and forth. We did storytelling where we had them interview the folks at the Robin Run. And then there was just this really great connection where the kids were transcribing it and then telling these great stories. And then we looked for connections between some of those social justice issues that were going on. We had a few folks that had gone through the civil rights movement. And then, of course, we were talking about Black Lives Matter and some of that awesome current level civil rights work that's going on in the Pride Parade. And oh my gosh, there were so many great connections. And it started because we had some genuine, authentic community members write letters, and the kids fell in love with them. I mean, these tough kids, inner city Indianapolis kids, they melted like butter. They made the greatest connections. And that's something that's going to really inform their living practice as a human going forward, right? Like we could have had them, read some articles from Time Kids and then do some poor research on social justice issues where they all wanted to talk about legalizing marijuana or whatever, right? Like it's always kind of that same standard research practice. But this made the connection. It was much more authentic. And was it messy? Yeah. Did we have some kids not follow through? Yeah. Did we have some amazing things happen that we'd never seen before? Yeah. And that's what's worth it, right? So again, this is really big. So it could also be fake correspondence. So that was an example of real correspondence. You could get that with, like, if it's a environmental studies class, or if it's something like for science or biology, like have your local governmental center, like ask them if they could write a letter about needing to reduce emissions. And so then the kids would help to solve that. Right? Like there's all these great people that would be happy to write a letter. Sometimes you just fake it. So I'm going to play this little video for you. It's only like a minute long, but it's the beginning of a PBL unit, an inquiry unit. This is their entry event. It's a breakup letter, and the kids are so engaged. Okay, let's watch.
I'm not sure how to start this letter, but I feel that we need to talk. I've been thinking about us a lot lately. I really thought we would be together forever, but then things changed.
We use this as a little bit of invisible theater to get our students sort of jumped up, to get them going, and that's our launching point.
I feel like you started to take me for granted, misspelled on a side note, but that's just because I'm an English teacher. You just started to do whatever you wanted and never asked me about anything or how I felt. I've been thinking about this for a while, and I don't want to hurt you, but I think it's time we broke up.
Oh my God. We know that we are getting at the theme of the Declaration of Independence, of people breaking up with a former governmental power.
I need some time by myself to see what it is like on my own. Sorry, but us is over. And now I feel, I guess we could say who wrote it. Is that like stepping over the line? Yes. Okay, don't hate me forever, but I'm gonna tell you who wrote it. It's signed the 13 colonies.
So totally fake, right? The fake correspondence, but the kids didn't know that at first. They thought it was a real note she found. Like she crumpled it up and you could see her kind of like straightening it out. I mean, like, oh, I found a breakup letter, right? Like, and they're like, oh, you shouldn't be reading that. And then it's this launch into the 13 colonies, or, the American Declaration of Independence, the breakup. So what I think, what I love about that is there's that cliffhanger, there's that moment where the kids don't know and they really think it's real. I might even pause there, have them do a notice and wonder, have them be like, I will read it. I will tell you who it's from. Someone convinced me that, like, who wants to know and who thinks I should keep it private. And maybe you even have them like vote, or, like you really get into it. You bring in the cliffhanger piece. I love it. It's a minute long, but I always love it. Those kids' faces, oh, we got to break up. Oh my gosh. So dramatic in the teenage years.
I'm not sure how to start this letter.
Don't want to watch that again. Okay, let's go on. Few more of these and then we're almost done and you will have a chance to kind of dig in. But field trips. Field trips are something we always did at the end, like a celebration. You learned all about animals. Let's go to the zoo. You learned all about botany. Let's go to the botanical gardens, right? Like there's always this culmination at the end and it feels like a reward. What if it was at the beginning? Again, explore before you explain. And you give them some opportunities to wonder about things. Because when the students come to you and say, I want to know why Venus flytraps, why do they eat flies? They're plant. How do they digest them? That's really interesting. That's fantastic. But like, you know what? I can help you with that. Right? Like I actually could teach you some botany about that. When they come to you and they want to know the content, like I need to know how to figure that out. And you're like, I can help you with that. That's really empowering. It's empowering for you because you feel like they actually want to know. And it's empowering for them because they want to know. They actually came to you with that need. It's so amazing. I linked here to some Discovery Education free virtual field trips. They're wonderful. There's so many that you could do these days, especially with the pandemic. So many organizations, companies, destinations, they created a lot of online virtual content. And you could give them some very purposeful things to explore, or you could just let them wander around and write down things that you're like, that's interesting. Like, like anytime you have a little, write that down because that's what you want to build off of. So field trips could also be an entry event instead of an exit event. Oh, guest speakers. Okay, so this is a snap from a Twitter post from a teacher friend of mine, Tina Banks. Now she teaches at the elementary level, but totally applies for secondary. She's an art teacher and she makes these amazing global connections. I linked at the bottom to her blog post on Keep Indiana Learning because she explains some of these great places where she finds these connections. One that I participated with her in was a mystery Skype. So she sends a little Facebook group message out to this Facebook group called Mystery Skype and said, like, I'm looking for this. We're going to be studying, I think she was doing something about like Dia de los Muertos. And she wanted to, before she explained to the students about this cultural piece, she wanted them to meet people of that culture and not know that they were asking questions of someone who lived in Mexico or, other places that she's done. So they work this out and then the kids ask these questions and then the other kids ask questions too, because it's a mystery for them as well, who they're Skyping with. And then it becomes this game of asking great questions to find out where these other folks live. They asked about their time zone and the weather and what they like to eat and how they got to school and what does their building look like and, what kind of pets do they have? And there were just great questions and so much energy. And what she did was she gave them permission to be curious without already having to know the answer to a question. And that's the hardest part. Our kids do not play the game of school with questions that they don't already know the answer. They play the game of school. I should already know the answer to any question I ask because it'll be easier, right? So we do have to retrain them. We have to do some unthinking, untraining, unlearning, and then relearn how to do these questions. So entry events are great ways to start with this. I love these mystery Skypes. She's connected into Canada and done this kindness project she did where the kids then sent their art to the other country. And then those kids made more art with that and sent it back. And now we have these global art projects about kindness that are going across the borders. I mean, it's just wonderful what they can do. And pretty much everybody wants to do these things because we all want our kids to have great experiences. So it's just tapping into that network. And then that blog post, she gives you multiple places where you can go to make those connections. So now we're talking about like the nuts and bolts, right? So, okay, great. We've got these events. In your Canvas course, you did a Notice and Wonder. I hope you had the opportunity to participate in a Notice and Wonder. And Jamboard is great for these Notice and Wonders, especially if you're a Google school. Whiteboard is also an app for the Microsoft Office 365 schools. They have one that's called Whiteboard. Very similar, but it's great because these are covered within the license agreement, the privacy agreement of your productivity suite, either Google suite of apps or Microsoft 365, Office 365. So you don't have to worry about starting a new account. We don't want to ever share our students' data with third parties unless it's approved, because that's essential. But also Google, you kind of get to know the Google platform, or you kind of already know the Office platform. So you're not having to learn the tool before you get to the learning, right? I love that. So Jamboard, I love. I think these are really great. They can just post notice and wonders. You can have them do them collaboratively. So you could share that so people could build off of other people's notices and wonders. Sometimes that inspires them to think a little deeper if they're doing it together. It could be in a group, it could be the whole class. It could be across classes. You could have all your classes trying to guess the answer to who broke up with who. Right. And then you could try to put the clues together. You could dig even to a much broader level, especially at secondary. That would be a lot of fun. But you could also have them start their own Jamboard and then just share it with you if you want to be able to see it. Easy. That's another way to do this. So notice and wonder with Jamboard. Also those need to know. So I've linked this this quick Google Doc, this need to knows template, where we have our notice and wonders, and then you have your I knows, and then I need to know. So the I know category might grow over time because a need to know might move to an I know. Or your kids might have background knowledge and they do actually know a little bit about this, right? So the kids, although they act as if their brain falls out every summer and they don't know anything from previous years, they do actually have a lot of knowledge in there. So tapping into what do they already know? Maybe they already know some background information, like the 13 colonies. Maybe they're like, oh yeah, I think like maybe Massachusetts was one of those. So they could write down like, I know some of the 13 colonies, but I need to know like why they would want to break up with somebody, right? So they need to really get good at this. Again, this is not going to come naturally to your kids. So you're going to want to start small. You're going to want to keep doing it, and it might build over time so that by the end of a school year, your kids are really good at this protocol. The first time you do it, they're going to suck at it. I mean, I suck at new things. Bravery is being willing to suck at new things and then get better over time, right? So you do need to be a little bit brave because this will be a process they need to learn. So I've given you a link to this, but it's very, very simple. Just having them give a place where they can document this. If you have an LMS like Canvas or Google Classroom or Schoology, you can make a table like this and then assign it to them so they get their own copy, and then it could go on throughout the project where they might move things from the need to know category into the I know category and fill in what they know. What a great way to document their research, right? They could even cite it right on there. And now we've got a working research document. So when they go to create their final product, it's not like I have to find all of my index cards. I have a working document that allows me to organize my thinking. Easy peasy. So this is the end of our little mini lesson. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm going to stop the recording now. If you have any questions, of course, reach out to me via Canvas or via email. You've got all my contact information. Thanks so much for contributing here, and I hope that your curiosity is piqued. So we have a live session next week, and we have 2 more modules to go, and then we're all done. Thanks, guys.